Okay. The mitzvah of tefillah. HaMitzvah chamishis hi shetzivonu li'ovdoi. So there's a possibility to from avodah. And a very strange thing. For nichpal tzivu zeh pomim, and in Ibn Eov it says pomim rabois, which is much better. The omroi va'avartem es Hashem Elokeichem, the oma v'oise tavodu, the oma uliovdoi. So we'll have to go through these ones separately, bli neder. But there are many different tzivuyim of avodah. Shezeh hatzivui hu gam kein me'atzivuyim hakoilim k'mo shebi'alnu b'shor shvi. So he's asking a question. Since it is a tzivuy of kol haTorah kula, according to shor shvi, it should not be in minyan mitzvahs. It shouldn't be in minyan mitzvahs. And it happens to be, it is. So that's what he's talking about here. So that's the Ramban says, Hine yesh bo yichud. There's something peculiar. There are, yichud means there are dvorim miyuchodim that are not kol haTorah kula, which is lispalel, one of them. And according to Ibn Eov, it's a much better because the Targum is like this: Lefi sheyesh bo yichud echod shehu l'tefillah. It's a very nice Targum. Sheyesh bo yichud echod shehu l'tefillah, and because of that, it's a mitzvah in the minyan mitzvahs. Now, let's yesh bo yish, and therefore it's a mitzvah. Okay, so that is a simple pshat. We have to understand what all the various psukim are, and we'll have to understand the question and answer. So, the pasuk va'avartem es Hashem Elokeichem, and then he quotes a pasuk v'oisei sa'avodu. Okay, and very interesting. There's a pasuk v'oisei sa'avod, which he's going to quote later in the Mishnah's Rabbi Eliezer, which he says, "U'mishnasa Rabbi Eliezer benoish Rabbi Yosef Galili Omru minayin liika tefilo b'toich HaMitzvos mehocha es Hashem Elokecha tiro oisei tavod," which is a pasuk which you didn't quote before. So let's go slowly, okay? Okay, so shetzivonu, I'm not sure if it's important whether in the Arabic it probably is not a verb, but it's a tziva al avoda, because it's that l'chera is the tilgum, but I'm not sure if it makes a difference. Okay, now v'oisei sa'avodu. This l'chera is a reflection of the Sifri, which the Ram doesn't quote. Excuse me. He doesn't quote the beginning. He only quotes the end. Okay, let's just go further to the end here. Here it says, yeah, the Omru, which is the Sefer in Re'eh, Ivdu b'Torasai b'Seirasai v'Ivdu b'Mikdasha. But there's a very interesting thing over here. It doesn't quote the pasuk. He's quoting the end of the Sefer that it says Ivdu b'Seirasai, Ivdu b'Mikdasha. But the truth is, if you look at the Sefer, the beginning of the Sefer is v'Oisei Savoidu. V'Oisei Savoidu, Ivdu b'Seirasai, Ivdu b'Mikdasha. So the Rambam, so you see from that Sifri that a makor for tefillah is v'oisei savodu, and that's what he's quoting over here. And in all the Kisvei Yad and even Tibin, the Rambam doesn't quote the pasuk of v'oisei savod, even though he has quoted Mishnah's Rabbi Eliezer, who says that that's the minayin the tefillah ikat tefillah minat menaminyin b'tzolch HaMitzvos. So it's very odd, the whole thing, and I found something which gives a clue of what might be going on. I looked at the Targum of Ibn Eov, and in the Targum of Ibn Eov, he brings both the Oisei Sabodu and Oisei Ta'avoid, both of them. So that's beautiful. And the question is, what happened? Did the Matikim just thought it was the same pasuk and didn't quote? I don't know exactly what happened, but it's clear in even Eov that I assume, unless he's done putting psukim on his own, that it was once there. Okay, now, then he quotes a pasuk, Uli Ovdoi. Uli Ovdoi is an infinitive. So we have to understand, the Ram said in Shiur Shmini that mitzvahs are basically commands. And it's not clear that an infinitive is a command because he says, achol, or loshin sivui, b'tziyuk l'shem or kilu, or mitzvah le'achol. I'm commanding you to eat, but the infinitive is together with a command, and here there's just an infinitive. Because he says mitzvah le'achol or achol, and we don't find there that an infinitive is a tzivui. The Rambam Mishnah Torah in Hilchos Tefillah does not quote the infinitive as the mitzvah for mitzvah's tefillah. He quotes the infinitive to tell you something about the mitzvah is that tefillah is avodah shebalev. And maybe in Mishnah Torah, it's not kefil lechizuk, as it seems to be over here, but it comes to teach you a new idea in tefillah, that tefillah is avodah shebalev. However, this whole issue, I think, is not meaningful at the moment, or important, let's say, because if you look at the pasuk in context, you see something very interesting. And the pasuk says like this: the psukim are that the avoid over here is not a mitzvah, but it's something which causes that the rains to fall. If you do this, if you do this, if it's avdoi b'chol levavchem b'chol nafshechem, v'nosati mitar atzechem b'ito. However, from the context, it's very clear there's a mitzvah over here. Because let's read the psukim again. V'hoyo im shomoya tishmu el mitzvosai. If you're listening to my mitzvahs, asher onoichi mitzvah eschem hayoim colon li'avo es Hashem Elokeichem. There's a tzivu, there's a mitzvah of avo uli'ovdoi b'chol levavchem, and there's a mitzvah of avodah. So it's mufurish in the pasuk that it's a mitzvah, even though the conjugation of the verb as an infinitive doesn't necessarily tell you that, and the whole context you would have assumed that it's if you do this, then this will happen. But whatever it is, it's mafush in the pasuk. The whole context is their mitzvahs, and these mitzvahs will cause the rain to come. So I don't think it's so bad that the Ram over here in Minyan HaMitzvos quotes Uli Ovdoi as a makor for the mitzvahs tefillah. And the truth is, the Ram's issue of Shurish Dalid, that it's a tzivu l'kaim kol haTorah kula, is well taken, because pashtus of the pasuk in the context, this is talking about kol haTorah kula, because it's because you're going to mispalel, that's why Hashem, or because you're going to be oived Hashem be'emes and do kol mitzvahs. So I would have picked the latter. So that's the Ram's kasha, that according to Sherish Revi, it shouldn't have been a mitzvah. And you also see this in Moreh Nevuchim, in Chele Gimel, Pasuk Lamed Beis, that he says that the issue of avodah is a kol mitzvahs haTorah, but you should oived Hashem mitoch avos halev. It's mamish beautiful. So that's the Ram's kasha. And in fact, the Ibn Ezra in Yesod HaMoreh, in Shar Beis, says that the tzivui of Avadatem es Hashem Elokeichem is a mitzvah kol Torah kula. And it's not Minyan HaMitzvos. And the Rambam is grappling with the Ebenezer's kasha, and how is he putting in minyan mitzvahs? So without anything, just on the merits of the pasuk itself, there's no mitzvah over here. It's Shurish Dalit. So that's what he says is Yesh Bo Yichud, and that's what we pointed out that the Targum Ibn Iyoi Lefi Yesh Bo Yichud Echod Shuhu L'Tfilah. So L'Chera, it has to be clear that this is not the idea that avoid this tefillah is not through Midas HaTorah, because through Midas HaTorah, it shouldn't have been a mitzvah according to Sherish Beis. Because the Midas HaTorah not minyan mitzvahs. So, l'chayil, you have to say, is the Rambam takes the double portion, there's a Pirush Mekubah Moshe Rabbeinu. The question is, what happens over here? Do we say through the Pirush Mekubah that this is pshat in the pasuk? That's what God told us through Moshe Rabbeinu. And we don't read the pasuk as we would have read it. Oh no, both the kayim. You read the pasuk kipshuta, but also there's a Kabbalah of a new aspect, a new layer in the mitzvah, in the pasuk. So you should say the latter. And why is that so? Because the Ram says, go back to his Russian. He says, V'af al pi shezeh hatzivui hu gam kein me'atzivuyim. It's both. Well, if you would have had the pshuto shemikvah by itself, it wouldn't have been a mitzvah. But the pirush shemikvah is not like the pshuto shemikvah, so otherwise, how can he say gam? V'af al pi shezeh hatzivui hu gam kein me'atzivuyim ha'kolim. So there's no stira, and both are extant, both exist. It was an amazing thing. The pshuto shomiklo is a tzivui of kol Torah kula, and that's not minyan mitzvahs. But the pshuto shomiklo says, the Pirush Mekubal says it is. So then you have to say it's not the pshat that Pirush Mekubal is not the pshuto shomiklo, and that's why it's minyan mitzvahs, and minyan mitzvahs is always pshuto shomiklo, as you would have assumed maybe with Shorish Beis. But the Pirush Mekubal, by definition, says the Pirush Moshe Rabbeinu the pasuk, even though it's not pshuto shomiklo, it's not a steer to Shorish Sheni. And even though pshuto shomiklo is maintained, you can still have a mitzvah. And that's the Pashut Pshat of what he's saying. Afal Pisha Gamke. We find something similar to this. And that is in Mitzvah Chof. we've got to be stopped. Let's go. Let's do one before, and then we'll go back to this. In Loisa Seresh Pezayin, Loisa Seresh Pezayin, Shaloyoid Korov, Shenema Lo Yumsu Avos Albonim, Ubonim Alavois Avos Lo Yumsu. Piashmua Shalo Yumsu Avos Be'edus Bonim. Vuadin L'Shakoy. Piashmua is a Pirush Makubo. And here you can't say that the Pirush Makubo is Avko from Shuto Shal Mikra, because the Mefurish Posik in Divrei Yomim, Beis Chofhei, Perek Chofhei, Posik Dalet, V'es B'nei Meloi Heimis, Ki Kakosu B'Teira, B'Sefer, Moshe, Asher, Tzivu Hashem Leimo, Lo Yumsu Ovois Al Bonim, Ubonim Lo Yumsu Al Ovois, Ki Ish B'Cheta Yomusu. So it says, the Pasuk, there's a Pasuk in Divrei Yomim that says the Pshat in the Pasuk is Kipshutai. So it means that the Pirush Makubal is only adds a new layer to the Pasuk. And also, we basically see in Mitzvah Chof, where he says, Mizbeach Avonim Taseli, in Pshuto Shel Mikra, Mizbeach Adom Taseli, in Pshuto Shel Mikra is a bomber. B'shas Heter Abomis. But there's a Pirush Makubal to tell you no. That it's a din in the how the Mizbeach in Mikdash or whatever is Mechubal Kalka. So again, there still is a Pshuto Shel Mikra and the Pirush Makubal, and they're not a stira. However, then I'm saying that the idea of avodah in our mitzvah kol is still kaim is very clear over here in Minyan Mitzvahs. But Mishnah Torah, the Rambam says that the tzivui for tefillah in Perek Aleph of Hilchos Tefillah, and he doesn't mention at all the idea that it's a mitzvah hakolel is kol Torah kula. And he's trying to explain why tefillah is called avodah, eza avodah shebalev zo tefillah. This eza avodah shebalev zo tefillah is trying to mefarish that it's avodah in the pasuk. That avatim is Hashem Elokechem is tefillah b'dafka. And adarabah, it's not a mitzvah. Lavos Hashem in kol mitzvahs. The Ram Perek Aleph Halach Aleph Hilchos Tefillah. Mitzvahs Aseh l'spalel b'chol yom. He doesn't can it as avoid as he does over here. Shenem avartem es Hashem Elokechem. Pir Shmuel Lamdu she'avoid zu he tefillah. Shenem li'avdu b'chol levavchem b'chol nafshem b'chol levavchem. Omu chachomim eiz avoid shebalev zo tefillah. Just now, another point. So the Rambam has a principle that if you have a posik that the Pshuto Shel Mikra is a mitzvah of Kol HaTorah Kula, But the Pirush Makubal has something peculiar, that it's a peculiar mitzvah, so you can count the minyan mitzvahs. So here, once you accept this principle, you can ask the following kasha, the following question. Ushmalti mis mishmalti is a pasuk. The Ram Shurish Dalit says Ushmalti mis mishmalti is a mitzvah kolelis, and it's not in the minyan mitzvahs. He says Hashurish Levi she'enu hoi limnois hatzivuyim hakolelim atayah kula. What we're just this we're talking about all the time. V'chulei v'zeh ka'amroi u'v'chol asher amarti aleichem tishameru u'ke'amroi es chukosai tishmeru v'es mishpotai ta'asu u'shmartem es mishmarti. So the Rambam's mefurish shmartem es mishmarti to see which is kol atayah kula, and therefore it's not minyan mitzvahs. But the Rambam Pirush Mishnah is very clear. There's a Pirush Makubal that there's an inyan miyuchad u'shmartem es mishmarti. Look at the Akdomas Rambam to Pirush Mishnah v'chelik Revi'i. Heim adinim shekovum hanevim v'chachomim b'chol dor v'dor al derech hageder v'asiyog l'teira v'heim shetzivo Hashem la'asoisom b'oifen kloli b'omrei u'shmartem es mishmarti u'bo b'kabbalah asu mishmeres l'mishmarti v'heim shekoin oisom Chazal Gezeros. So Bar Kabbalah L'Cheira is a Pirush Makubal. So L'Cheira, the same way we said that even though the mitzvahs avodah, which is kol kula, it still is the minyan mitzvahs because the inyam yuchad tefillah. You should have said the same thing over here. See, even though a mitzvah calls kol kula, there's an inyam yuchad, a mitzvah bezdin l'sakein v'ligzor. And why shouldn't it be a separate mitzvah minyan mitzvahs? So here, next. Now, let's now go back to the Ram Hilchos Tefillah, Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph, Mitzvas Aseh, Lispalel B'chol Yom, Shene'emar V'avartem es Hashem Elokeichem, Mipi Hashmua Lomdu, She'avodah zo hi Tefillah. Shene'emar Li'ovdu B'chol Levavcha B'chol Nafshecha V'chamoimim, Omu Chachomim, Eizi Avodah Shebelev zo Tefillah. So there's something very odd over here. The mashmos of the Rambam when he says avodah shebelev, l'chei you would have said that it's not only to say what the mitzvah is, but how you mekayim the mitzvah. Says that you can mekayim the mitzvah b'libo levad without enunciating the words with your vocal cords. And this is the Mogen Avraham learns like this. In Mogen Avraham, it's in Kufal of Sivkot Beis. That's the way he learns. But the Rambam says in Shurish Chi that tefillah is through your vocal cords. It's through speech. Dibur. And it's not through thinking in your heart only. And that's what he writes. Da, shekol tzivui atera, v'yazroiseho, hine heim be'abod dvorim, b'deis mepulim midas b'dibo, v'chulei v'tzivonu, be'amiras eze dvorim, kegoin v'chulei, u'lispal aleilov. So the chayra, you wouldn't have wanted to say that avodah shebalei is the way you mekayim the mitzvah. The Rambam in Mishnah Torah also seems to say when he's explaining the Raisa, he says magid shmochai. That tefillah requires enunciation. Perek Aleph halacha beis and gimel el chiyuv mitzvah zo kachu sheyehei adam mischaneinu mispalel b'chol yoim umagid shmochai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And also halacha daled, that since in the mitzvah's tefillah is avodah through speech, if a person is going to pray in a confused language, in some type of mishmash of chant, of various languages, it's a stira to avodas hatfila, and therefore Ezra HaSefer tefila v'siyeh tefila is elo ilgim tefila shlema kitfila bali aloshen atzacha. And if you say that tefila doesn't require it's a leiv midraisa by itself, so what difference does it make if it's a shibush in his lashon? However, there is achalus din deraisa and tefillah about the shebalein. It's not to the exclusion of enunciation b'peh, but there's a new aspect of tefillah. As the Ram says in Perek Daled v'tefillah v'chtezayin, keitzad hi akavona sheyifane es liboy mikol hamachshavos v'yira atzmo kilu atzmoi lifnei hashchina. He is avodah shebalev. He looks, he feels as he's standing before God. So there are two separate things going on. There's the speech in the tefillah itself, and there's a kavanas alein, which has to happen. The Ma'aseh mitzvah is with dibur, as Ram says in Shosh Chi. But it's not enough to have dibur without leiv. You need dibur, which comes to kavanas alein. There are many layers to this. The Ram says that kavanas alein is makiv in tefillah. In Uchas Tefillah, Perek Daled Loch Aleph, Ketzia Kavodah Shifad, this, and he says in Loch Aleph that it's Mak. These are Makiv. And the pshat is that the person should feel himself as an Eved standing before God, before his master, the king. And that's what Chaim says, this kavanah is makiv in tefillah, in the whole tefillah. Because the Ma'aseh tefillah requires your cognizance of your Evidom Lifnei Hashem. That's what Chaim says in Hilchos Tefillah Perek Daled Halacha Aleph. Sheichaved shu oimed b'tefillah Lifnei Hashem. Kimavur b'dvorim Perek Daled Shom. So the Shorim Ma'ye Kavanah Sheifana v'chulei v'nir the Kavanah Seizo Eino midin Kavanah Rak shuhu me'etzem Ma'isa Tefillah. V'im ein liboy ponui v'eino loya es atzmoy shoim lifnei Hashem u'mispalel ein ze ma'aseh tefillah. That's what I told. That's beautiful, I think. Okay. Okay, next. And therefore, secondly, and furthermore, a person who's mispalel without the feeling is Lifnei Melech is a misasek. There's no ma'aseh tefillah. That's what Chaim says. V'alkein makeves kavanos zu b'chol tefillah. De'b'mokim shehi shohoyim misasek dinoi k'lo yispal klau. And I would add, that's Rab Chaim, the end of Chaim, I would add that this is the Pshat Noblos Agodol in Brochos Chav Chesed Beis, Gushatem Mispalim, Du'u Lifnei Mi, Atem Oimdim. This is the Ikar Tefillah, and that's what Noblos Agodol is saying. And therefore, the double portion that a person's born in Aderech, and he's mufka from the kiyum avodah shebalev, he can't focus that he's oimed with Hashem. He shouldn't be mispal. Even if you say tefillah b'chol yom is d'oraisa. In Perek Daled Halacha Tezvav, kavonas halev keitza called tefillah she'eino b'kavona eino tefillah. V'im mispal b'lekavona choizu mispal. Then he says, the fiko chabov naderech shuoyev or meitzal also lo lispalo ad shis yashev daitoi. Amu chachomim yesh shlosha yomim ad shianuach v'nitiskare daitoi v'achach yispalo. Next. Here, now going back to this last part of B'chol Yom, in Minyan HaMitzvos, there's no mention. There's no mention in Rambam here that Tefillah is B'chol Yom. In Minyan HaKotzer also doesn't say about Kol Yom Nispalo Loi. And if you ready to accept that Tefillah b'chol yoim here in Minyan HaMitzvos is not a deraisa, there's no din midaraisa that you need kol yoim. So the Ramban's question from Balkeri that calls man Shaloi toval eino mispalel afilu achrei kama yomim eino mispalel. So the Ramban conclusion is that Tefillah b'chol yom is not a deraisa, And the truth is, there's no makor in Torah Shebeksav from the Pesuk of the Ram quotes already that we know of that tefillah has to be b'chol yom. You see the Kesef Mishnah in the beginning of the tefillah, Perek Aleph Aleph. So if you accept that, and there's no kol yoim, and there's nothing, and certainly here in Sefer HaMitzvos and in Minyan HaKotzer, so the issue of noshim being chayiv and tefillah midaraisa l'chayr is a double portion. There's no zman grom at all. However, in Mishnah Torah, that the Ram says b'chol yoim, and also in Protei Mitzvah he says lavar es Hashem b'chol yoim b'tefillah. And in Hilchos Tefillah proper also. And still, the Ram says, Mefulish, that Tefillah is not a mitzvah say. There's no ptur of mitzvah she's mangroma. He says in Perek, he says, in Perek Aleph, Halach Aleph and Beis, he says, V'eil tefillah zman kavua min ha-Torah, ulefikach noshim ba'avodim chayom b'tefillah, lefi shi mitzvahs aseh shelo zman groma. So the question is, why is this a mitzvah she's zman groma? You need it every day. She has a limited time, once a day. So it should be zman groma. So I heard from the Rav once. He said, in the name of his father, Rav Moshe, that since there's no hefsek in the chalois chiyuv, there's no zman that is a ptur from the mitzvah. There's no hefsek in chiyuv. There's no mitzvah seishes man groma. But the question is, what does all this mean? How can you say such a thing? Because if every day is a separate mechayiv, so even there's no hefsek, it is a zman groma. And we still have the problem of the Sagas Ramban by Balkari. So I saw that the Rav just said it like that to us when we're learning Sefer HaMitzvos, but it is reported. I can't take responsibility for it. That the Rav interpreted what Father said as the Kavanas Rambam. It's not. Because he learned in Rambam that he learned in his father in Rambam Ein Zman Kavua that there's no din midaraisa that is a machayev to mispar b'chol yom in the Rambam Mishneh Torah. And you always mechayev to mispar. The Rambam means b'chol yom. I assume what he means always. So I want to, and this I want to work on still. This needs a little more work. Okay, I'm sorry. You could say something simpler. Let's just leave it like this: that what the Gemara Brachos is talking about mitzvah seshas mangromo in tefillah is only in tefillah d'Rabbanan, that it's 3 times a day. There's a whole different idea here, and your question is what the Ram is saying. There's a very interesting Ram Pirush Mishnayis in Perek Aleph Gedushin, Mishnah Zayin, Yodato sheklalu etzleinu ein lemedin min hakolos. There's a cloud that ain't lemedin min hakolos. V'omu kol aloitze loime v'omu kol. Paul, this concept of call really means al piloiv. Avol mitzvahs aseh shanoshim chayovis u'ma she'ein chayovis b'chol hekefon ein lehem klal ela nimsorin al peh v'heim dvor mekubolim halo yedato she'achilas matzah leil Pesach v'simcho b'moadim v'hakel u'tfilo u'mikol megillah v'nei Chanukah v'nei Shabbos v'kiddush hayoim kol elu mitzvah seisha zman groma v'chol achas mehen chiyuv l'noshim ki chiyuv l'anoshim. So there's a Kabbalah that noshim chayovis b'tfilo, even though it is a zman groma. And the Rambam Mishnah Torah says that it's not a zman groma, but we're not sure if this is talking about tefillah d'raisa, tefillah d'rabbanan. You might want to see there's 2 other Ma'amakomis here. The Rambam in the base of Bechira, the Miri in Brochus Chafam Beis, the Ramaschu Machlokes Gedola. Yeah, it talks about the Rambam there. And the Shagisaye, Yeshanas Simon Yudalid. Okay. The Rambam continues and says, let's see this now. Olazu Tfila, Olazu Talmud. He says, V'omru gam kein li'ovdoi u'li'ovdoi ze Talmud. So l'chayr ze Talmud is the Talmud Torah. And that's how the Ramban learns the Nasogis over here. And Ramban al Torah, Dvorim Vov Yud Gimel. And Rabbeinu Hillel Sifri. The Aminai Li'ika Tefillah B'toich HaMitzvos. What does it mean Ika Tefillah B'toich HaMitzvos? Ika Tefillah is the Shiur. Ika Tefillah is the Shiur of Tefillah, which means the Mitzvahs Tefillah d'Raisa. B'toich HaMitzvos means that it's the Mitzvah Min HaMinyan. I just want to say one thing. I want to say that even according to the Ramban, the Ramban does not deny that Rabbi Eliezer Hagodol, Rav Eliezer ben Aglili, excuse me, Rav Eliezer ben Aglili is saying that tefillah is avoided, it's a deraisa. He just claims that others disagree, and we pass it like the others. We pass the Chachamim. He's listened to this lashon in Shorish Hey. V'ein haskama b'zeh, which means the tefillah deraisa shekva biu achachamim b'gemara tefillah d'rabanan. V'ein haskama b'zeh. I mean, he happens to hold like that. We don't pass him like that. We pass like the chachamim. So no one denies this. It's just the question is that do we pass him like this Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer? It's Kedai, not for us now. The Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer we have is different than the Rambam that it has here, but it's really irrelevant because the lashon she b'tech HaMitzvos minayin likut tefillah b'tech HaMitzvos, that is in both nuschos. It's interesting the way Rav Sadiq learns the mitzvah. That's where he silascha. That lechera is the way it's formulated in the Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer that we have. Now, in Sifri, Ivdu b'Teirasa, Ivdu b'Kdoshay, in Sifri we find two things that are called avodah: Talmud Torah and Tefillah. And the Ram here is the mitzvah's Tefillah and not Talmud Torah. And the question is, how does that work and why is that so? So the beer, what you have to say is the beer haposhet, the simple explanation of avodah is asiyas hamitzvos. And the Sifri brings the inyan of avodah by two mitzvahs, by Tefillah and Talmud Torah. The mitzvah's Talmud Torah is a kefel for the mitzvah save Yud Aleph. In other words, the Torah is telling you a second time, Vavadatem, the Yeshua, it's not kilo, they say yeshiva's a new idea. It's avoid this a Talmud Torah, but the it's pushed the Talmud Torah. I don't know where you get this from, but it's and it's a kefal mitzvah, so there's no reason to talk about it. But the peculiar aspect of the mitzvah, which is not kefal mitzvah, is the mitzvah's tefillah, but it's a minyan mitzvahs. Okay, atzlocha.